Have you ever felt like you're constantly performing, smiling when you're exhausted, agreeing just to avoid conflict, nodding your head while inside you're screaming, "This isn't me"? You chase goals that don't excite you. You post photos that don't reflect your reality. You say the right things, but they don't come from your soul. And then, in the quiet moments, when no one's watching, you feel it. A strange emptiness. A sense that you're drifting further away from who you really are. Carl Jung believed this wasn't just a modern problem. He believed it was a psychological crisis, one caused by something we all carry inside us, the ego. The ego is not your enemy, but it can become a tyrant. It builds your identity, but it also builds walls. It protects you, but it can also imprison you. It tells you what to say, what to wear, who to be, and the more you obey it, the more disconnected you feel. You start to confuse your reflection with your truth, your image with your essence, and you wonder, why am I doing all of this if I still feel so empty? Today, we're diving deep into Carl Jung's warning, not just about the ego, but about what happens when you let it take control. Because the ego isn't just ruining your peace of mind, it may be quietly ruining your life. To understand why the ego can ruin your life, you first have to understand what it is. Carl Jung described the ego as the center of your conscious identity. It's the part of you that says, "I am this. I do that. I believe in this." It gives structure to your daily experience, helping you make decisions, set boundaries, interact with the world. In a way, the ego is your psychological anchor. You need it. But here's where the problem begins. The ego isn't the whole story. It's just a small part of a much bigger self. Jung believed the psyche is like an iceberg, and the ego, it's just the tiny tip above the surface. Beneath it lies the unconscious, your memories, instincts, dreams, desires, and the parts of yourself you've forgotten or buried. The ego thinks it's the king, but it's more like a nervous gatekeeper, trying to control a kingdom it doesn't fully understand. And when the ego tries to block out everything it can't control, that's when it becomes dangerous. The ego wants to be right. It wants to be liked. It wants to be in control. So it creates a version of you that fits in, that avoids discomfort, that hides anything messy or uncertain. You start living from a place of image, not truth, from fear, not freedom. And that's where suffering begins. The ego doesn't scream, it whispers. It tells you, don't take that risk. What if you fail? Don't show your emotions. You'll seem weak. Don't try something new. You're not that kind of person. It sounds like protection, but it's really a cage. The ego loves routines. It thrives on repetition, sameness, predictability. It clings to old roles. I'm the smart one. I'm the strong one. I'm the one who never needs help. But the truth? Those roles were often built in childhood, in moments of fear, rejection, or trauma. And now they're outdated maps, guiding you through a landscape you've outgrown. The ego hates being wrong. It fears being exposed. So you react instead of reflect. You defend instead of question. You shut down instead of open up. And slowly, quietly, you become smaller. Not in body, but in soul. The ego teaches you to perform, not to connect. To impress, not to express. And over time, you stop asking, "What do I feel?" and instead ask, "What will people think?" That's how the ego traps you, not with force, but with fear. Not with chains, but with expectations. And worst of all, you don't even notice. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video. Your support helps more people discover these ideas. And if you're enjoying this journey into the mysteries of the mind, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Now, back to the video. Carl Jung said, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The shadow is everything your ego refuses to see, the parts of yourself you deny, the emotions you suppress, the desires you're ashamed of, the pain you've buried so deep you forget it was ever there. You were taught what was acceptable, what was strong, what was normal, and everything else. You pushed it down. You became who you needed to be to survive. But those parts didn't disappear. They became your shadow, and the more you ignore it, the more it controls you, from the dark. The ego says, "That's not me." But Jung warned, if you don't face your shadow, it will run your life. Not openly, silently, like a puppeteer behind the curtain. Shadow work is not about blaming yourself. It's about meeting yourself. Not just the parts you show the world, but the parts you hide, even from yourself. Your ego wants to look perfect. Your shadow wants to be seen. And only when you bring them together can you start to feel whole again. So what's the alternative? If the ego is just one part of us, if the shadow holds what we've denied, then what does it mean to live as a whole person? Carl Jung called this process individuation. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real. Individuation is the journey inward. It's the slow, courageous work of integrating all the pieces of who you are, your ego, your shadow, your dreams, your failures, your wounds. It's seeing your fear without letting it define you. It's admitting your flaws without collapsing into shame. It's allowing yourself to grow into someone you weren't allowed to be before. This isn't a linear path. You don't arrive. You deepen. You notice your patterns. You question your roles. You slowly, piece by piece, reclaim the parts of you that got lost along the way. And something changes. You no longer need to prove anything. You stop chasing empty goals. You start listening to your inner voice, not just the loud one in your head. Individuation is the antidote to ego domination. It's not about destroying your ego. It's about putting it in its rightful place. No longer the master, but a tool. Because when you stop pretending, when you stop performing, you become someone far more powerful than perfect. You become whole. The ego is sneaky. It doesn't announce itself. It just becomes the background noise of your life. But if you slow down, you'll start to notice the signs. Here are 6 ways your ego may be quietly controlling you. 1. You're constantly comparing yourself to others. You measure your worth by what someone else has. Their success makes you feel like a failure. Their happiness makes you question your own. 2. You react defensively when criticized. Even gentle feedback feels like an attack. You shut down or fight back. Because the ego equates being wrong with being unworthy. 3. You're obsessed with how others perceive you. You edit yourself in real time, choosing words, outfits, even emotions based on who's watching. It's exhausting. And the worst part? It leaves no room for authenticity. 4. You can't slow down. You always need to prove something. More achievements, more likes, more approval. You're chasing an imaginary finish line, thinking then you'll feel enough. But the goalpost always moves, because the ego feeds on striving, not arriving. 5. You avoid silence, stillness, or being alone. Because in silence, the mask slips. In stillness, the deeper questions rise. Who am I beneath the performance? Why do I feel so empty? 6. You struggle to admit when you are wrong, vulnerable, or afraid. The ego wants control. And to the ego, vulnerability looks like weakness. But Jung knew, vulnerability is the doorway to your real power. If any of this sounds familiar, don't panic. You're not broken. You're human. We all live with ego. But once you become aware of it, you can begin to step beyond it. So, what can you do when you realize your ego has been running the show? The first step isn't to fight it. It's to observe it, to gently notice how often your choices are driven by fear, by image, by the need to be someone. That awareness It's the beginning of freedom. Start small. Take a moment each day to sit in silence. Not to think, not to fix, just to be. Listen to your thoughts. Watch your reactions. Ask yourself, what part of me just spoke? Was that fear? Was that pride? Was that truth? What am I avoiding right now, and why? Write, reflect, get honest. You'll start to see patterns, old identities that no longer serve you. You'll hear the voice of your ego, but beneath it, something softer, your real self. Carl Jung didn't say you had to kill the ego. He said you had to integrate it, to stop living on autopilot, to stop believing the small story when you were meant for something bigger. Use the ego when needed, but don't let it define you. You are more than your job title, more than your appearance, more than your carefully constructed identity. You are vast. You are layered. You are becoming. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, you're not alone. Subscribe for more videos on Carl Jung, self-discovery, and the journey inward. And let us know in the comments, what part of your ego are you ready to let go of? See you in the next video.